Welcome to East Tennessee Pinball. Today I'm going to tear into this classic Stern Wildfire. So I've had this game for 6 or 8 months. I bought it as kind of a part of a trade deal. It was working just kind of barely when I bought it. It's a little rough. I haven't even tried to boot it up yet, so y'all are going to get to go through this with me. See if it'll boot now. The back glass is pretty decent. It has spent some time in a barn. Unless people are having birds poop in their house, I'd say it's been in the barn. When I picked it up, it was in a guy's garage. It's possible there were birds in his garage, but I don't think so, because it was kind of a, actually it was kind of a basement. We walked through his garage and kind of in the back, it was kind of a semi-finished garage. So I don't know. That could have been on there for a long time. So let's look at the play field. I remember it's got some wear. Yeah, pretty good there. I'll stick Jane on that. She'll make that mostly go away. The crocodiling, those cracks that are filled with dirt, those will be harder to get at. Probably a candidate for some magic eraser. Have to see how well it endures the magic erasing. And I was looking earlier, I saw, yeah, there's a big piece of Mylar, semicircle piece there. Hopefully there's not a bunch of dirt underneath that. There is Mylar around the pop bumper rings. That looks pretty decent. The rest of the playfield's just got a lot of ball swirl, a lot of like real minor cracking, wear around the inserts, of course, and plastics are, swap out all those pop bumpers, probably put on new drop targets, obviously new rubbers. The plastics themselves are in pretty good shape, and this set, they don't have any clear around the edge, which is kind of nice because the old ones, it's really that clear that gets yellowed. It's hard to get the yellow out like cleaning them, but this doesn't have any yellow. So I think these plastics are going to be like really good. Just clean them up a little bit and they'll be fine. So playfield's not great, but I think it's a candidate for getting a lot better. So now I'll show you in the back box. It's not real pretty. Well, you're missing a couple of bulbs, and the ones that are there, I don't think too many of them are going to work. They're all silvered. I'm guessing probably somebody was grabbing bulbs from here and sticking them down in here. That's what I would do if I didn't have any bulbs lying around. Okay, right away, original caps, soundboard, all original caps. I don't remember if the sound was working on this game or not. It might have been. I know the board was booting up because it did play. That is the original battery on there, and it's just starting to corrode, so that's should be salvageable. These are kind of mangled up, but they're probably okay. We'll see if the lamp board is working. So not too bad up here. I do see some electrical tape 3000 here. I bet that's not a pretty show underneath there. I don't want to pull it apart quite yet, but it's got the original rectifier board. Got some old school big ass resistors there. The test points are a little bit different too. But yeah, this is Stern's version of things. If you don't know, all these boards, the Sterns and the Bally's are completely replaceable, and usually, so this is a Bally game. I'm sorry, a Stern game, but this is a Bally rectifier board in there. It does have the other two boards are the Sterns, and it does have the Stern soundboard. Those are unique to this game, but there is a replacement board. I've used it a couple times, but we'll see if this thing works. If it does, I'll probably just recap it and call it good. From what I remember, some of the displays, at least some of them worked, but they were kind of flaky. So without further ado, I haven't even taken the glass off of it here, so let's just boot it up. So I'm gonna turn it on here in a second. That light should flicker, and then we should get 7 more, and then it should boot. So here we go. Nothing. I wonder if it's plugged in. All right, let's try it one more time with it plugged in. See if we get anything. Whoa. Soundboard's got some kind of life. It's screaming. Woo. About scared Jane out of her pants. Something's growling down here. The coin lockout's growling. And the soundboard is, you hear it just, it's making a wily noise. I don't know if we're booted or not. Yeah, I think we are. Some of these old games that didn't really have much of an attract mode, but we have zeros up here, so I think we're booted. Let me go into the diagnostics here. I'll press this once and see. Yep, it was booted. So we got our displays, or the inserts are blinking. And geez, I think all of them are working in the back box here. I think every single one. I got a bulb out there, but that's on the same driver. And geez, most of them down here are working. There's a few burnout, but you know, I guess I bet that's what they were doing. They were pulling bulbs out of here and replacing them down here. Let's go another one here. So I hit it again. That should be the displays. So let's talk about these displays for a second. That one, it's probably fixable pretty easily. Probably replace one of the little transistors on there. That one is the same, and it's also, this one's really flaky. I bet if I wiggle it probably got cold start. See that? Wow, I just wiggled the connector back here and fixed it. Well, I didn't fix it. I temporarily fixed it, but I know what the problem is. It's just cold solder joints. That one there, digit might come back too from cold solder joints. No, that's probably, so that one's probably a transistor. That one's working. This one's missing a bunch of stuff. And this one's DOA. Anyway, we'll go through this. By the way, I've got a full whole long video on diagnosing and fixing these things, but we'll probably go ahead and fix these, or I might just swap these out and put in some different ones. I've got a whole bunch of them already fixed. So the sound is just still going on crazy. So we'll go to the next test. So I heard the one, boop, beep, boop, boop. That's solenoid 1, 2, 3, 4. So those sounds are controlled by the solenoid driver. So I think those are working. We've just got a tremor that's constantly going in the background. I don't know what that's about. And there's, most of these are, I don't know if everyone's going, but let's just watch it here real quick. And we'll just listen for the noise. So 5, 6, 7 are not doing anything, but they may not be assigned to anything. So we'll have to look at the manual and see if 5, 6, 7 are supposed to do something. So here's the map of the solenoids. On 1, 2, 3, 4, boop, beep, beep, boop. Those all beeped. And then 5 and 6 and 7 didn't do anything. So, but 1 through 6 are not even mapped at all. Usually they'll say not used in the manual, but this manual doesn't say that. They're just left out. So I don't know if all 1 through 6 are supposed to make sounds, or just 1 through 4 and 5 and 6 are nothing, but 7 is supposed to be the left thumper bumper. So we're not getting that one. I'm in the switch test now, and we've got switch 7. And again, on these older games, if like switch 7 is down, if there's a number higher than that, like say switch 23 was down, it wouldn't report 23, it would only report number 7. In the older versions of this software, they would report all of them, but on the early ones, it only report the lowest numbered switch. So I don't know what 7 is. I'm not really concerned about it. Really, none of this stuff matters yet, because first thing I'm going to do is go all through all these boards and make sure, you know, just I'm gonna have to go through them anyway, and I'm gonna fix a lot of this stuff along the ways, and a lot of this stuff's gonna start working by just going through this. So I'm gonna start with this rectifier board. I'm gonna pull it out of here, at least pull it, maybe not pull the whole thing, but pull the panel down. You can look at the back of it, look at the solder joints on the back of here, fix this nonsense, check the fuses. That one's pretty toasty right there. I may LED this game, I don't know. But I'm gonna pull this board out of here and take a look at it to start with. Just for fun, I couldn't resist myself. I coined this thing up and I started a game and it did kick the ball out. Flippers are not working. Some of the solenoids are working. Though that's working. Those kickouts are working. The pop bumpers are not working. So some of the solenoids are working and some are not. So I know I got the 40 volts or whatever for the solenoids, but so some's working, some's not working. Again, we got to go through all these boards anyway, so I'm going to turn it off and get back to what I said I was going to do and start with the solenoid or the rectifier board here. So just before I take this apart, I was going to just measure my voltages. I think they're all here because I think I saw pretty much everything working. But leaving this top right one in, this provides all the power for this thing to operate. And I was going to measure the voltages, and I measuring up across the top of here, and none of them were. I couldn't read any voltages, and I knew I had the voltages because the game was booted, you know. So, I had grabbed my ground right here, and, then I pulled this strip up out that provides the ground from the bottom up to here, and that's not connected to anything. So, there's that. So I don't have a ground the ground is all messed up, basically, is what I'm just trying to say here. So I need to make sure that all this rectifier is grounded to the rest of the game. Otherwise, I'm just going to have, I could zoom up. I could make sure that this rectifier and the transformer, everything is all on the same ground plane, or it's just going to be all kinds of crazy problems. That could be even part of the problem with the sound. The sound, anytime the sound's not well grounded, you get goofiness, and I'm getting this. That could be a 60 hertz phantom signal or something. I don't know. It's less than 60 hertz, but it's like 2 or 3 hertz. But I don't know. Crazy nonsense. So I'm gonna first get this ground problem fixed, and then I'm gonna start working on this. So I'm just playing around with this some more. I haven't fixed the ground yet, but I took the ground. I put my negative here on the case of the transformer, and I was touching these other ones, and I still wasn't getting a DC signal. So I put on AC. I'm measuring 10 volts AC across these. The DC was kind of like, because it's a digital meter, it was like couldn't quite lock in. It was bouncing around. Occasionally I'd see like 7 or 8 volts or something semi-reasonable, but it wasn't having a hard time seeing that DC voltage because there was so much AC floating around. So yeah, this game is not grounded at all. It's got a 3-prong plug on it, but I'm gonna have to take the head back off and just start from the very basic on this one. Let's get the ground going. So I got the head laid back. I took this out of from the head there, and I attached it down where it was ripped off right down there. You can see where it's attached there. And if you look over on the side, you can see, well, maybe you can't see. See that box mounted on the side? That's where the power comes in, and there's that box is grounded, so the plug should be grounded to that box from right here. If I measure continuity between the ground of this plug and that wire, I should be measuring continuity. I do not. So either there's a break in this wire, or that plug is not wired up inside of here, or I can't really see very well, or it's not soldered in down there on that box there. So that box is basically just to protect from voltage strikes and like lightning and such. Those rarely cause you problems. But anyway, so I really can't get in the game right now very easily because I got the box laid over. And when I took it apart, I noticed that these were the glue was kind of coming out. So I'm gluing these up. So this is going to sit for the night before I take this back off. So I really can't get to it. So I'm going to probably just call stop for today, and we'll see where we're at tomorrow. Maybe I'll take this apart and just look at it, see if it's wired up with the right polarity. So this is what it looks like inside of here. 2 of them. Now obviously that was in there before and taking this apart, that fell off, but that one was not on there. And so that's the downside of, if that happens to touch the hot side, which on this one, it should be this one here. Actually, that's the ribbed one there. And the rib, so this is think that's backwards. The rib should be on the other side. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, so in addition to everything else, I don't know if you can see those little ribs on that wire there. It's hard to see with this yellow background. But there's little tiny striations, and so there you can see it. That's the I shouldn't say the ground one, that's the common. So that's the neutral one. And that one should be attached to this left side with the ground on the bottom. So not only was the ground, the green one, not plugged in, this one was not plugged in very well, the hot one, and the hot and the common were backwards. So pretty much everything that could go wrong was wrong with this. I'm gonna just take this off, throw it in the trash, and put on a different one and put it in with the right polarity, and then we'll measure our ground again right there and see if we got the ground. So one of the issues of I've experienced this before, if you get the hot and the common backwards, the game will boot and it'll play, but if you got a lineup of games and you got 2 games, and sometimes you will have a little bit of voltage leak over to your ground. You shouldn't, but sometimes it happens, and you touch 2 games, and it can just be a little bit of voltage. You'll feel it, you know. It's not like a 110 volt shock, but it's just kind of a minor. It'll get your attention. It's not much fun. All right, so now I've got continuity between the ground and the grounding strap. So once I put the head up, I'll screw this into the grounding strap on the top, and then the transformer should be grounded. I can check that, and I won't have that floating AC signal on the rectifier, and I'll be able to measure voltages, and then we'll start on the rectifier now that we got the ground. But again, this is going to have to sit overnight, let this glue dry up, and we get back to it tomorrow. Good news is I found an original manual in the bottom of the game, and $1.73 in quarters and random junk. So I got the head stuck back on here, and I put this grounding strap right in there where it's supposed to go, and I still didn't have a good ground between the end of the plug. I got it laying on the ground here somewhere, right here, between that plug here and different places in the cabinet. Sometimes I would, sometimes I'd have 10 ohms, sometimes I'd have 20 ohms of resistance. I got to look around, and the strap here is just stapled up there, which was probably fine for the first 10 or 20 or 30 years of service, but you know, it's just not, as staple gets loose, it's just not making intimate contact between this little strap and that back. So I just, instead of screwing that in there, I just screwed it in right there. So it's got some good pressure, and that's gonna be a lot better place to put it. And now I've got a good ground. So now I'm ready to plug this thing in. And first thing that's going to be interesting is see if we still have all that crazy noise that on the start, that dee-doo, dee-doo. And I'll be able to measure my voltages, hopefully. I got booted up. You can hear it still whining. It does make 4 beeps. Anyway, I'll turn it off. And we'll see if we can measure some voltages over here. Just when I turn it on, as soon as I turn it on before the game boots, it makes a horrible sound. So this got some issues with the soundboard, not too surprising. Anyway, I'm gonna go through this and measure the voltages real quick, and we'll see what we got. So I'm measuring DC here, the first one. What do we have? Oh, one diode, sorry. 6 volts, so that's the controlled lights. That's 250. That's for the high voltage. That's for the display, sorry. 14. That's going to be turned into the 5 on the solenoid. So that goes up there. That's really supposed to be 12, but it's a little high. It's okay. The last one here, 45, that's for the solenoids. And you put it on AC for the 4th one, and it should be another 6 or 7. That's the GI lights. So those are all good. So everything's working on this. But again, I want to pull it off and take a look. Back of the board looks pretty decent. I want to zoom in here to look at the... They really don't look too bad. Somebody's worked on it a little bit. See some flux. So somebody may reflowed some of this some time in the past. Doesn't look too bad, really. Got some heat stress around that one. That's a 6 volt control. That's one that's most likely to burn up. It's a little undersized on this board, but it's still kicking. So not much to see. I was expecting these to be just horrible looking, and they're not. So that's good. I think I'll put it back. I noticed the pins on this one felt really soft pulling it in and out. I'm gonna check this. I'm gonna look at the other ones. A little heat stress on that one for sure. Doesn't look very good inside of there. I'm gonna swap out at least some of these pins. That one there on the end by my thumb is looking pretty tarnished. So I got the rectifier board reinstalled. I did put some fresh, I just wiped all the old heatsink grease off of the back of the rectifiers, put new on there. Where's the one connector? No, it's right here. This is one that had the electrical tape on there. I don't know exactly why this happens. You've got two of them that have been cut and resoldered in electrical tape. Why? Why did this happen? Why did it occur? Not sometimes I see all of them cut. I figured they took a connector off another game and just soldered it in, but just two wires. I don't know. Do they just have two bad connectors and they took two leads of wires off another game and put them in here because they didn't want to crimp on the new connectors? If they did, they used the same colored wires. They're very professional about their hack job. I don't know. Did they just get cut by accident? Somebody explain to me why this happens. Anyway, I'm gonna desolder this, cut it in two, and put some heat shrink because I hate the electrical tape. I just can't stand it. So I checked all the fuses. There was a 5 in place of the 4, which is not that big a deal. It's not too far off. I got those tidied up a little bit. So next thing, I'm done for the day. Tomorrow I'll start on the driver board. It's where they make the 5 volts. I'm gonna pull this board off, change the caps, do a couple clays upgrades, what I call them, and basically I say bulletproof, but whatever you can do, make this thing as stable as possible, and then we'll move on. So I'm calling it for the day. See you tomorrow. So it's next day for me. I've got this driver board pulled out of the game, and I'm going to do some mostly maintenance on this thing. One thing that I noticed was that number 7 wasn't working, which is the left thumper. I don't have a copy of the schematics, but I can pull them up on IPDB, and I found left thumpers right there, come across, and it's, what's that say? There we go. Well, now it's focused. Okay, left thumper. It's Q9. So I want to do a diode test at least on that one right there, Q9. I'm just going to mark that right now as suspect. It's not a permanent marker. Sometimes I do use permanent markers on these. That's a dry erase. So the other things I'm going to do is I'm going to swap out this 1980 cap and this 1980 cap. This is the cap that basically forms a reservoir for the 12 volts. The 12 volts comes over here to this bottle cap transistor, which regulator, if you like, makes the 5 volts. So if you got a lot of ripple, this basically takes the ripple out of the 12 volts where it's made on the rectifier board, so it's nice and smooth. That allows this to make a smoother 5 volts. So the 5 volts you don't want to have ripple, the AC left over. And this does the same thing for the high voltages going to this blade. So this one's a little bit less important, but again, it's 1980, so I'm going to swap both of those. I'm going to do 3 more kind of, these aren't maintenance so much as upgrades. I just went ahead and marked them. So this is the negative of that big cap there for the high voltage. This thing is not grounded to the board. It's grounded only if you follow this around to the pin. So I'm going to put a jumper between there and that big trace right there, which goes over here. It grounds that negative side of the cap to the back box, which I've already fixed the ground on that, so that's good. This is that larger cap in the center for the 12 volts. That's the negative side of that. I'm going to ground it to this trace, which is also a ground trace that's grounded to the board. So that will get that grounded. And the one other kind of curiosity about this board, I'd say, I don't know if I call it a defect, but it's not a great thing, is so, I've talked about this before, the 5 volts made up here, it comes off, in these chips down here, they need 5 volts to operate.
So instead of just running the 5-volt down to here, it comes on that disconnector. There's a loop of wire about halfway down to the bottom. So it takes the 5-volt off the board and then back on the board with just a little loop of wire. So it's 2 connections that are not necessary. So I'm gonna put a jumper between here and here. That's test point 1 and test point 3. And that makes the 5-volt for here rock solid. So I'm gonna do those. And the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at these. So somebody's reflowed some of these. That one doesn't look very great. Let's look at some more of these. That one looks pretty horrible. Nobody's reflowed this bottom row, and they're like, that one's pretty loose. So I'm gonna go ahead and reflow all of these. Somebody's touched on some of these. Who knows when this was? Got those two. So anyway, I'm gonna reflow the solder on all the hairpins and do all this stuff, and in a snap, it's gonna be done. I'm gonna check this with the diode test, and if I see anything funny on that, I'll swap that off too. Okay, I'm just going to check this transistor. I can see that mark from the other side of the board. I'll just kind of get my bearing here on one that's probably working. 0.5, 0.4, check another one, 0.5, 0.4. We're looking at something between 0.4 and 0.7, 0.5, 0.4. So it looks the same. I'll go the other way. 0.5, 0.5, 0.4. So it's probably right. So probably I'll pick up the game and the wire will be hanging off the coil or something else, or bad connector, or who knows what it is, but probably not that. If it is, we'll come back and swap it out later, but it looks like it's okay. So just kind of summary. I still need to put a zip tie on that one, but I changed out that cap, I reflowed all the solder all the way around the board. I grounded that right there, and this is the first time I've ever done that. I don't know why I've never done it before. When I put the cap in, I just bent the lead over on the cap instead of trying to bridge it with solder, because it's kind of a big gap. You can do it, it's not that bad, but a wire is a little easier. Put a ground wire there, and a ground wire there, and so this one's ready to go back in the game. And the first thing I'm going to do when I put it back in the game is I'm going to check the voltage on this thing. I checked it actually off camera before I pulled this out, and the 5 volts was measuring 5.3. That's too high. And I honestly, most of these old classic Bally and Sterns I measure, they're usually around 5.25, which is too high. There's not really an adjustable way to do it, but if you cut out that capacitor right there, this you can modify that to lower it. But if you just cut it out completely, it's going to drop it about a tenth or 0.1 to 0.15 volts, which is about what you need. So I'm gonna cut that out. I'm gonna wait till I put it back in the game. Changing this potentially could have a little bit of effect, probably not much. I think it was 5.32. It was real high. That anything above 5.25 is kind of getting dangerous to burning up your chips. But I'm gonna put it back in there. I'm gonna measure the 5 volts. So you can measure it here or here, either one of those. That's where it's made. This is where it comes off and goes back. But now we've got a jumper between here and here on the back of the board. So we'll measure that, and if it's too high, I'm gonna snip that out just while it's in the game. It's gonna go snip and snip. I bet I end up doing that.
Okay, I got it thrown back in the game. I disconnected everything but this one. This is where the power comes in, and also the 5 volt comes out. So I disconnected the MPU. Probably ought to disconnect the soundboard also. I want to do that. Not off the top of my head, I'm not sure which one of these 5 volts comes in on, but we'll disconnect that. Probably could disconnect this one too. That's where all the 5 volt comes in on that one. Pretty sure. Okay, I think we're turned on. Let me see if we got any voltage. I've got this multimeter on. Yeah, 5.32 volts. That is too much. That's exactly the same as it was before. So I am going to cut out that little capacitor right there that I'm pointing at. And we'll measure it again. So here's that little capacitor I cut out. Would have been right there. So let me. Okay, the game's booted up again. We'll measure this one more time. And we got 5.19. Still a little bit high, but not, it's less than 5.25, so I'm not too worried about it. So the reason for this, all these games being like well above 5, at least my theory anyway, is basically they're at this point they're high tapped. So if you look on this one's got the schematic right here for the transformer. You can basically set it for 115 coming in or 120 coming in, and I bet this one is wired for 115. And right now, if I measure the voltage in my wall, I've got above 120. I've got like 122 or 123. So, you know, I've got a 6 or 7% boost above what it's expecting to see. So that increases that 5 volt by a similar amount. So that's why it's high. So these games are, in a sense, like in the EM world, you'd say it was high tapped. So one way to go about it is to take the shield off, go down there in the lugs, and redo the lugs on here. And there's just little jumper wires between these. They're just little wires that are soldered between the lugs. I don't know if you probably can't see them very easily in there. It's pretty easy to do. You just got to take that off. I usually don't do that. I usually just cut that out. And as far as I know, not many people do this, because every game I come across, they're measuring in excess of 5.2 or 5.25, and I always chop them down. It gets me down to 0.5, 0.1 to 5.2, which is a little high, but it's not crazy high.
So next step, I pulled out the MPU. I was thinking this was the original battery, but it is not. It's been swapped. So who knows how old it is. Maybe when we get it out of here, we get a date off of it. It's pretty old. I'm going to take this out and I'm going to put in a coin cell battery, which have a very low propensity to ever leaking again. So that's going to be my solution. Otherwise, I don't think anything's been done to this thing. I don't see any signs of work on it. There's a little glob of solder right there. Kind of funny looking. I get it to focus in. That doesn't look right. I don't know how that could have gotten there, because that's up. That's how the top of the board. It's not like you're trying to do something at the top of the board and dripping down in there. But that's what that looks like. I can't imagine that's supposed to be there. I think I'll take it out. Just caught my eye, just looking. Kind of wild. Yeah, most of these classic batteries don't use this header pin up here. This game does. It's all connected up here. So anyway, I might get the schematics out and see what those go to. Maybe that'd be kind of fun anyway, just to see. Maybe it's supposed to be done. That was done on purpose and just wasn't soldered very well. But first I'm going to take this thing off and replace it. So I can't quite read any dates on this thing, but it's old. And it started to leak, but it hadn't gotten very far. I mean, it's all just isolated right there and right there. You see it's starting to get underneath the mass there. So I'm going to sand all this off and then treat it with some vinegar and then wash that vinegar off. This stuff is a base and the vinegar is an acid, so it neutralizes it. And then you want to wash that remaining or that acid off so it doesn't keep eating the back sides really the same. So it really isn't too bad. So again, I'm going to sand it and treat with vinegar and then wipe that vinegar or rinse the vinegar off some more water and or alcohol. So I sanded this down. I use one of these sanding eraser things that it's made for sharpening a knife or honing a knife. Joe's Arcade hawks them on his YouTube channel, and they're pretty nice. They sell them on Amazon. That's where I got them from. Recommendation from Ronnie. Anyway, I like them. They're basically like an eraser with grit embedded. They're great for stuff like this where it's kind of uneven. Because I couldn't like the tab there. I couldn't get that desoldered because there was so much corrosion. There's still a little bit left I can see, but that's where the vinegar is going to help out. The backside's really not too bad, so I'm going to treat this with some vinegar. Oh, and that little blob of solder back here, I just flipped the board off and it's gone. So note to self, I need to clean my bench because I think that was just, I had a little blob, something laying like that, laying on here. And I think it just got mashed down on there. But you can imagine that probably, whatever those two things were supposed to be doing, they wouldn't have done them twice as good being connected together. So anyway, I'm going to treat this and then we'll throw on the coin cell. Just got a little vinegar, the toothbrush. I don't know if y'all can see, but it's fizzing up, which means it's reacting with what's left. Put a little bit on the back side here. If you can see in that hole, it's bubbling and popping. Like when you first pour a soda over ice, just effervescing. That means it's working. Also means I didn't quite sand maybe quite enough. Ideally, if you sand it completely, you get rid of all of it with sanding, but yeah, it's hard to do. So I'm gonna let that set for a little bit, and then I'll rinse it off. I'll just probably spray some alcohol so I can get back to work. So you always have to kind of make a plan on how you're gonna do this. So this side is the negative side of this battery holder. The top one is the positive. So any of these three are attached to the perimeter of the board, so they're the negative. So I can use any of these, and I'm gonna drill a hole because I can't quite span. So I probably put that middle one, and I want to put it in a place where I can drill a hole and not hit anything on the other side. So I'm just going to etch a line there. And there's, I don't know if y'all can see it, but I can see it. So I can drill right through there and be free of everything, probably down a little bit further. Yeah. Oops. Sorry about that. It went through a hurricane there. So that'll be laid down like that. And on the back side of this board, I'm going to have to use a diode because the other one was a charging battery. This one's not going to be charging. So I'm going to have to set this on the back of it between that pin there and this here. So the voltage the current can go out of the battery towards this pin here, which is the 5-volt pin. But it can't go back and try to charge this battery because this battery is not rechargeable. So that's my goal. So I'm going to get a little drill bit. Drill a hole right about there, and I'm going to solder this in, and I'll solder this on the back of the board, come up through here, and it's be all done. Alright, so I got that done. The negative goes soldered on right there. The positive goes in there. comes through. It's facing away, so the current could go away. And I've got it basically going through the board, and it's soldered up on the top here. So anyway, that should work. And so I'm not going to do anything else with this board. I looked at the headers. They look pretty decent. Somebody's touched up this one. Well, that one actually doesn't look good. Let me look one more time. I thought that one looks like crap. Wow, that one's cut off too short of the factory. Yeah, I may need to go around this board. So I got the MPU back in there and everything plugged back in. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back on, make sure it still works. And we got the little blast off. Oh, we don't have the basically the siren going nee-noo, and it did make a little sound when it booted. Let me turn the volume up a little bit. I think that's up. Go into solenoid test. If I turn it up very loud, it's got some noise. So we got 5 beeps. I think we only had 4 beeps before. So one of those beeps could have been a bad header pin. That's really the only thing I fixed. Wow, this thing is really loud. And that background, that I don't know what fixed that. Because we had this out, I should have checked after checking this. Could have been put the caps in, maybe. I don't know. A bad header pin on this one. I did reflow the whole. I did reflow all the header pins on this. Anyway, that's progress. So it sounds like the soundboard is working. It does. If I turn up the volume very loud, you hear the background. It's not a wobble. It's just kind of a hum. I guess that's what I'd call it. So I'm gonna pull this board off. Probably recap it. I'm assuming these are the original caps. Look, and do a little maintenance on this board and the lamp board too, probably. I'll do this one at a time. I'm going to do the soundboard first here. Now, just disconnecting, and I disconnected all these 2 pins here, and they're the same ones up here, and that's where that blob of solder was. It's possible that I didn't jam that blob of solder on, somebody else did when they had the board out or something, because it didn't drop on there. Well, there's nowhere to drop it from, so I don't know. Maybe that was part of the problem. I did definitely reflow those pins, although they didn't look too bad. I don't know. I always like to know how I fix things, but sometimes, honestly, it's better if you don't, if you just go through it. This is a good example of fixing things without really know what you're doing in terms of like how you fixed it. You're just going through and doing maintenance and fixing connectors and headers and caps and, just laying your eyes on stuff and fixing stuff that you find. So I was trying to find some dates on this thing, and the one date I found here looks like, anyway, I get to scroll in there. 8408 would be the 8th week of 1984, but that's after this game came out. So I was like, what the heck? And then I saw that sticker, 85. So this board did not initially get installed in this game, I'm guessing. I don't know. Or maybe this was recapped in 84. Either way, these things are really old. But I believe these have been changed. I believe it looks like they've been, you can see flux around the solder on several of these caps. So, but I think it was a really long time ago. So I'm gonna just swap them all out again, because it's almost as if they were the originals. Because if they were swapped in 84, that's a long time. So I got this board all recapped. One interesting, well, not interesting so much, this board doesn't have the positive and negative marked on the board, which kind of stunk. So I went ahead and before I pulled them out, I put little tags with the dry erase on the negative side of all these, so I wouldn't get them in backwards, because if you do that, you're liable to, well, it won't work, and or the caps will blow up. So I think I got them on there right, and so we'll throw it in there and see if it sounds any better. All right, soundboard's back in the game. We'll boot it up. Well, still got the bong
on boot up. It's not as bad as it was. Oh, the sound's better. That other whining you hear is Django. It's 10:17, which means it's 17 minutes past his morning constitution, so he's ready to go. He's telling me. Anyway, so back to the game. Yeah, so that's sounding better. Let's go through the sound test here real quick, or the solenoid test. That's better, for sure. I know it's just binks and bongs, but it definitely sounds better. I don't know how well it comes through on the video, but it does. So, I don't know if I even want to mess with the lamp board yet, because half the bulbs are probably out anyway. And I may just go get a different lamp board, although I kind of like to get the stern in here. I may have another stern board. I'm probably going to just swap out all these displays for ones I've already worked through, because when I've worked through them, I want to work through 10 or 20 at a time, not 4 or 5 at a time. So I'm probably just going to swap those out. I don't. Let me just go look, see if I've got a lamp board real quick here. A stern one. I got a big pile of them that I've already worked through. There's a stern one, a blue stern one. Belly. There's I think that blue one's the only one I've got. It's a different color. I think these were green, I believe. Kind of greenish blue. I don't know. I guess that's pretty blue. In person, it looks more green. On the camera, it looks blue. Huh. That's kind of weird. I guess the boards don't match anyway. I may just go throw that one in here because I know it's going to work, and I put this in my pile to fix. Again, I kind of like doing these lamp boards, and I've got a tool, and I do them all in batches when I get a bunch of them. And I don't know. I may LED this. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just LED the GI lights, because if you LED these, you can't use this board. It just doesn't work. The LEDs don't draw enough current for these things to stay latched on. So you got to put in a modern replacement, or you got to put on the little jumpers, the little pseudo connectors on top of these connectors, the little daughter boards. I'm not really a fan of those. That daughter board kit costs like $50. You can get a lamp board for a little over 100. So I usually just put a new lamp board in them. So I think I'll do that. I think I'll just put LEDs in the GI to brighten it up. And for the controlled lights underneath the playfield, I'll just use incandescents. So I just swapped out one of the boards that was completely dead, and I checked it. I used the plasma ball to see if it was glowing. It had any gas in it. It did not. It wasn't glowing. Pulled these two boards. One of these was working. The other one would work if I wiggle the connector. Just look at these. Yeah, the pins are just horrible on them. Look at this other one here. Equally bad. So I'm going to reflow all these pins in them, and there's 2 more in there. I don't know I think I'll just swap them out and I'll repair them another day. So this one was completely dead. I swapped it out. These two I just resoldered. This one was working. This one was working if I wiggled the connector. They're both good now. This one's missing a digit, and this one's missing several digits. I'm just going to swap them out real quick, and these two are probably fixable. I just don't want to take the time to do it right now. This is my bin of working. I've got them fixed up. I'm about to run out of them. I'll have to fix some more. And this is my bin of, they're glowing, but they need some work. That's not my hand rank, that's somebody else's, but yeah. Some of them are pretty toasted. That one is pretty much trash. That's one I just threw in there. So I'm going to grab a couple of these. If I can, I'm going to get a Stearns. There's a Stern right there. And I'll see if I find another Stern in here. Wow, that one's kind of an off-brand. It's not labeled either way. Oh, there's another Stern right there. Yep. They're white labeled Sterns, but Stern nonetheless. Anyway, I'll throw those in there, and we will be done with the displays. Well, these two are not going to work. They are wider. See how that one there sits out further than this one? So I didn't realize they made them in different widths, but apparently they did, and these two are for a wide body display holder, so I'm gonna have to get something else. So I swapped out those last two displays. I also put in a freshly reworked lamp board. It matches pretty good. It's slightly different color blue, but you know, pretty close. I'm gonna boot it up, see if everything's still working, see if all our displays are working. Let's put it in test mode here. Well, that looks weird. That one display is kind of funny looking. Oh, maybe that's just the way it looks. Just, yeah, they're all, that strobe is not real. That's just, oh, shoot, I got the wrong one. That's a 7-digit display instead of 6. I was like, I'm missing a digit. Nope. I just got the wrong type. So I'll have to swap that out for 6-digit. And, wow, I've got no controlled lamps. Oh, it's not. It's on the display test. Reboot it again here. See if at least some of the lights are working. Should be. Maybe not. Let's go. Oh, there's one. Like I said, I think I said this earlier, that these early Sterns, they don't have much of an attract mode. Yeah, they're kind of walking around a little bit. I'll put it in the lamp test. And some of them are blinking. We probably have a bunch of bulbs out, and fair chance a lot of the sockets are crappy too. But by having a good display back, or a good lamp board that I've already tested and know it's working, it'll basically take that out of the picture and I can just focus down here. So at this point, short of swapping out that display real quick, I'm ready to take the glass off and get under here and start fixing everything else. I bet everything's really sloppy. The pop bumpers are going to need to be rebuilt, drop targets, flippers, and I know that pop bumper there is not working at all, so I have to pay some attention to that. So we'll get going. Well, I'm having a lazy Saturday morning with the puppies. Django's here, and little Joe, he's under here somewhere. He likes under the covers. Anyway, just editing the videos, and I noticed I'm already at an hour, so I figured I'd stop here at the end of the electronics, and the next one will go through fixing up the playfield, and I believe we're probably going to clear coat it. So stand by for the next one. We'll post that one. I don't know. I haven't done it yet, so I don't know how long it's going to take. Probably a few days or a few weeks. I don't know. Something like that. Click the like button and subscribe. Cheers.